Elon Musk is suing Media Matters, and Ken Paxton from Texas is joining in on the fun, launching an investigation into Media Matters. And the reason is because the allegations are that Media Matters concocted a scheme saying that the X platform, which of course Elon bought, is putting advertisements against racist comments, and that was something that should scare the advertisers away. And so we saw a big running of Apple and Disney and all these other weenies. We're scared. And they ran away. Turns out the story may not be true at all. And Ken Paxton says that Media Matters may have committed fraud. He's launching an investigation into this by diving into the allegations that they made. Now, Elon promised a lawsuit here in response to all of this stuff happening on the X platform, advertisers leaving and the smears becoming more prevalent. Elon filed this lawsuit in Fort Worth, Texas, the great state of Texas, and it's a 15-pager, and he is bringing it against Media Matters for America, and he's also naming Eric Hananoki. So you see X Corp from Nevada suing Media Matters for America. This is out of the Northern District of Texas, Federal District Court, Fort Worth Division, demanding a jury trial. Here's what Elon and X say. They write, "The defendant, Media Matters for America, is a self-proclaimed media watchdog that decided it would not let truth get in the way of a story it wanted to publish about X." You know that pesky thing called truth? Media Matters, they want to stop X. And if X is not racist, that's not good for them. So they got to make it happen. So looking to portray X's social networking platform as being dominated by, quote, white nationalist and anti-Semitic conspiracy theories, Media Matters knowingly and maliciously manufactured side-by-side images depicting advertisers' posts on X beside neo-Nazi and white nationalist fringe content. So they put these images side by side. They said, see what X is doing? Every time Apple wants to advertise their new product, it shows up next to some racist, bigot, white nationalist, MAGA extremist. Not true. And then they portrayed these manufactured images as if this is what typical X users experience. But the truth is, Media Matters designed both of these images and the resulting media strategies to drive advertisers from the platform in an attempt to destroy X. So Plaintiff X operates the X social media platform. They've got 500 million active monthly users. That's a big number. And X facilitates free expression and open discourse by enabling its users to create and share their own content and to message and comment on other users' posts. And of course, we're very grateful for X. We have faced a lot of censorship here. We've had multiple strikes here for medical misinfo, election misinfo. We had demonetization for 9 months after January 6th. And we're grateful that there is now competition in the form of X and of course Rumble and of course our locals. There's a lot of alternatives now, but the other side does not like that. So these posts appear sequentially to users in feeds, which is occasionally inclusive of paid advertisements, and that is the overwhelming source of X's revenue. Now, users shape their own experiences on X. Users curate the content on their own feeds. They get to choose who to follow, and thereby they determine which posts are presented to them. Most users are served a variety of content based on an algorithm that takes account of who that user follows and what that user engages with. But X also provides its users the option to forego algorithmically suggested posts altogether, and thereby enables a user to view only the content that the user chooses to view. As the most prominent online platform dedicated to hosting free speech, X and its predecessor, Twitter, have long been the target of Media Matters. In fact, in just the last year, Media Matters has published a series of articles threatening X's relationships with massive multinational advertisers and global publishers. People like Amazon, pretty big company, eBay, Major League Baseball, New York Times, Samsung, Sports Illustrated, Wall Street Journal, USA Today, Office Depot, Nokia, Dish, Bayer, Tyson Foods, Honeywell, Discovery, FanDuel, Thermo Fisher, National Women's Soccer League, and more. This November alone, Media Matters, this so-called watchdog, they released over 20 articles and counting, disparaging both X and Elon Musk. This is a blatant smear campaign. And here's just one footnote. They said X, this is an article from MediaMatters.org, X is placing ads on Amazon, NBA, and all these things, and it's next to white nationalist content. Now, for the last several years, this is from Eric Hananoki is posting this, Musk's team says, for the last several years, Media Matters has falsely portrayed Twitter, now X, as a risky, unsafe platform for advertisers. Now, contrary to these efforts, 99% of X's measured ad placement in 2023 has appeared adjacent to content scoring above the Global Alliance for Responsible Media's brand safety floor. But undeterred by the truth, love that line. They hate the truth, man. They just make it up as they go. go. Media Matters has opted for new tactics in its campaign to drive advertisers from X. Media Matters has manipulated the algorithms governing the user's experience on X to bypass these safeguards and to create images of X's largest advertisers' paid posts adjacent to racist, incendiary content, leaving the false impressions that these pairings are anything but what they actually are. They're manufactured, they're inorganic, and they are extraordinarily rare. But Media Matters doesn't care about the truth. They hate it. Media Matters executed this plot in multiple steps. And how do we know this? X has the data. Their internal investigations revealed the following. First, Media Matters accessed accounts that had been active for at least 30 days, bypassing X's ad filter for new users. So, Media Matters then exclusively followed a small subset of users consisting entirely of accounts in one of two categories. So they created an account and they bypassed X's ad filter for new users. So I guess these were not new accounts. Okay, so they went and got like old accounts and they started running tests on old accounts, it sounds like. Accessed accounts that had been active, so they're not new. And then they exclusively followed a small subset of users consisting entirely of accounts in one of two categories. So they type in some racist words, they follow everybody. Like anybody who like looks like they're doing extreme fringe content, they follow. Those known to produce these content. And accounts owned by X's big name advertisers. So do you see what's happening now? So they're creating, they go and they follow like 1,000 of X's worst people, try to fill the feed, just pummel it full of bad content, right? And then they follow the advertising companies like Apple and Disney and all the others so that their posts also show up in between the two. Now the end result was a feed precision designed by Media Matters for a single purpose, to produce side-by-side ad content and screenshot it so that they could send it to the advertisers. Look at what your ads are doing. Look at your content. Now they say, but this activity, okay, even though they tried to do that, which is about as dishonest as you could possibly get, they said, but this activity still was not enough to create the pairings of advertisements and the content that they wanted to produce because they weren't the advertisements, right? So like, if you just think about your feed, let's say, you know, it's a racist bigot post right here, racist bigot post right here, racist bigot post right here, but then you get an Apple post, right? It's just an Apple post. And you say, okay, but that's not an ad, right? That's just a post. And it's a racist post here, racist post here, racist post here. But what you really need is an ad. Like you need the ad there. So Media Matters therefore resorted to endlessly scrolling and refreshing its unrepresentative hand-selected feed and then generated between 13 and 15 times more advertisements per hour than viewed by the average X viewer. Okay, so they're just on the feed, refresh, 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 refresh. I just need an ad to show up. Like show up, just show up, please, please, please. And then they repeated this inauthentic activity until it finally received pages containing the result it wanted. Finally, we got an ad. Controversial content next to X's largest advertisers and their paid posts. So then they refresh. Now it's racist, 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 Disney ad, racist, 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 racist. And they did it. It took them like 30 times. Refresh, refresh. If you use Twitter, you refresh it. Your boy does that all day. Refreshing, refreshing, refreshing. Now, Media Matters omitted mentioning any of this. They didn't tell us about this methodology, which I mean, obviously, like that's not going to happen for most people, obviously. They're not going to go and follow a bunch of racist content and bigoted content on purpose and unfollow everybody else and then just refresh in order to get the ad so they can screenshot it for their fake articles. But Media Matters doesn't mention this. Instead, they just publish the article. It's everywhere. Every time you open up X, it's all there. No, not true. And they displayed instances of the things that Media Matters so-called found of X's advertisers and their paid posts that were featured next to neo-Nazi and white nationalist content. Nor did Media Matters otherwise provide any context about the forced, inauthentic nature and the extraordinary rarity of these pairings. No, of course not. It served their end. However, relying on the specious narrative propagated by Media Matters, these liars, the advertisers targeted took these pairings to be anything but rare. They said, oh my gosh, our ads are next to Nazi content, with all but one of the companies featured in the Media Matters piece withdrawing all ads from X, which is really, you know, reprehensible from those companies, including Apple, Comcast, NBC Universal, IBM. Some of X's largest advertisers all bailed because they're like, oh no, we don't want to be seen. Now, indeed, in pulling advertising from X in response to this intentionally deceptive report, IBM called the pairings an entirely unacceptable situation. We can't believe this is happening. Only Oracle did not withdraw its ads. Shout out to Oracle for not being morons. Now, the truth, all these other people, right, can't figure it out. They just, oh, Media Matters. Oh, we're scared. The truth truth bore no resemblance to Media Matters and their narrative. In fact, IBM, Comcast, and Oracle, their paid posts, their ads, they appeared alongside the fringe content cited by Media Matters for only one viewer. They have the data. What post are you talking about? Let us look at the analytics on it. The post appeared only alongside one viewer out of more than 500 million on X, pretty small. And guess who that user was? Guess who saw that ad? Media Matters. It was their account. Yeah, the account they created. Not a single authentic user on the X platform saw IBM, Comcast, or Oracle's ads next to that content. And Media Matters only achieved it through their manipulation of X's algorithm as described above. And in Apple's case, only 2 out of more than 500 million active users saw its ad appear alongside fringe content in the article. And of the 2 that saw Apple, only 1 of which was Media Matters. So their own people saw the alleged offensive content. Now they say Media Matters, they could have produced a fair and accurate account of the interactions with the advertisements. They could have just done some basic reporting, not complicated. 1, following actual real users, documenting the actual organic production of the content. Had it done this, however, it would not have produced the outcome that Media Matters desperately desired, which is to tarnish X and their reputation by associating it with racist content. So instead, Media Matters chose to maliciously misrepresent the X experience with the intention of harming X and its business. We know who the parties are, and we know that Eric Hananoki is a writer for Media Matters, and he lives in Maryland. Now, we know that these companies are located in different locations, and here is what Elon says. X is a social media platform that remains in operation due to its loyal users and advertisers. They invest heavily in technologies that work in tandem to facilitate safe interactions. And as a first layer of protection for advertisers, X applies default protections to all posts. They're designed to prevent the advertisements from being placed next to content that violates the guidelines. When users operate within the community guidelines, these default mechanisms are effective. Now, as a second layer of protection, X provides advertisers with opt-in options that allows them to specify keywords that they do not want their post to appear by. These safety protocols have been protecting the brands for some time. Media Matters knows this. And they continue saying that these things work. That's why Media Matters had to systematically manipulate the user experience to get the results they wanted. On November 16th, Media Matters published a fake article saying X has been placing ads for these companies next to pro-Nazi content. They say that X was responsible for anti-Semitic content being paired with advertising posts, but this statement is not true. Media Matters knew it. As explained below and displayed in an X internal review, the title is false, in that Media Matters itself, not X, was responsible for the placement of the content it identified, and it specifically intended to bring about that content. In fact, tried to get around the safeguards that prevent the platform from showing these things. But in the body of the piece, Media Matters falsely claimed that it recently found, right? It found these things. No, it didn't. You created them. They didn't find pairings. Media Matters created these pairings in secrecy to manufacture the harmful perception that X is incompetent or somehow indifferent or even at worst, encouraging Nazi and racist ideologies. Now on X, users can control the content in their feeds, but Media Matters exploited these provisions. X's internal user data tells the story of just how far Media Matters went to manufacture this inorganic user experience. First, they set out to attempt to evade X's content filters for new users. They specifically got accounts that have been in existence for more than 30 days. Then they set its account to follow 30 users, far less, only 30 users, far less than the average numbers of account followed by a typical user, which is about 219. So it stopped the feed from being diverse, right? So it's only going to be a certain type of content. Now, all of these users were either already known for posting controversial content or were accounts for X's advertisers. That is, 100% of the accounts that Media Matters followed were either fringe accounts or were accounts for large national brands. In all, this tried to flood the zone and the account with only this type of content because they tried to create it. Like they tried to make it happen, but it didn't work. An internal review revealed that Media Matters, they started to alter its scrolling and refreshing activities, which is kind of scary, by the way, that they know this about you. Elon knows how many times I refresh my timeline. Oh man, that's not good. I don't want him to know that. I don't want anybody to know that. It's for show prep, honestly. Honestly, it is. But it's a lot, right? So, man, you're on Twitter a lot, Rob. All right, get a life, bro. So, scrolling and refreshing activities in an attempt to manipulate the inorganic combinations of advertisements and content. So they go right to their Media Matters account. They're like, oh, look what you're doing. And they can see they're scrolling. Okay, they're just scrolling, not even reading, scrolling, trying to see if there's any racist content, and refreshing. Media Matters and their excessive scrolling and their refreshing generated between 13 and 15 times more advertisements per hour than would typically be seen, essentially seeking to force a situation in which a brand ad post appeared adjacent to the fringe content. Now, eventually, through intentionally evading X's multiple safeguards and by curating the content on its feed and then repeatedly attempting to create the pairings of advertisements for major brands with controversial content, Media Matters finally achieved its goal. Accordingly, it took screenshots of the post that it engineered and then published it. Now, it hid its manipulation from everybody. They generated specific intended results that's not only inorganic, but exceedingly and demonstrably rare, all while taking the specific steps to obscure this fact. The overall effect on advertisers was to create a false and misleading perception, and Media Matters hid these manipulations and their omissions through selective secrecy. They omitted in its entirety its process of manufacturing these ad pairings. It did not include in its article that it created a user that only followed 30 accounts that either belonged to fringe figures or major national brands, neglected to tell us about that. Neither readers nor advertisers had any way of knowing that their entire feed was orchestrated to create the results. They didn't mention at all. They didn't talk about excessive scrolling. They didn't talk about their refreshing. They just allowed users to believe that this is what happened. Totally organic and unmanipulated. All fake. Now, Media Matters also omitted and made no attempt to clarify the rarity of these pairings. The representation put forth by Media Matters constituted 0.000000909% of the impressions served on the day. Now, most or all of these pairings were not seen by literally anyone besides Media Matters' own manipulated account. No authentic user of the platform has ever even been confirmed to have seen any of these pairings. And they tell us that Media Matters and their image choice in its smear also functioned to hide the true nature in its report. All images selected contained only the ad and the controversial content, with all of the other posts absent from the view. That is, if the readers had been able to see the posts above and below the pairings, they would have gleaned the highly specific nature of the small number of accounts that Media Matters chose to follow. Okay, you take a screenshot of your phone, you can see a lot, but what comes before and what comes after. But they just cropped that out to pair the two together. If you could have seen what came before and seen after, you'd be like, what is this person following? Why are they following this weird stuff? Now, Media Matters chose to show every pairing in its article using the same deceptive technique, hiding its deceit with even more deceit. Now, tellingly, Media Matters used X's privacy features in order to hide its methodology. They used the great features of X. That is, Media Matters set this account to private, so they blocked anyone from seeing which accounts Media Matters actually followed. Thus, they disallowed anyone from understanding how its feed was manipulated, so that if you tried to go search the story and see, oh, Media Matters is on this account, I wonder what this account shows, and you go try to find it, oh, it's private. Indeed, Media Matters at no point includes images with any information about the account that was exposed to these images. The cropped nature of the Media Matters screenshots leaves its profile picture out of the frame, so you can't even go look it up, but they found it and it's private, so nobody can see it. So accordingly, they say Media Matters created the impression that these pairings were organic, accurate, representative of the typical user experience, which is not true, and that has demonstrably misled users and caused harm to X. Now, after the publication of the false smear, advertisers began pulling ads from the site, probably hundreds of millions of dollars, like no joke. Only happened after it was reported. Here are the companies that pulled out. Comcast. After Media Matters article was published, its parent company pulled all ads for Comcast. NBC, as the parent company of Bravo and Comcast, pulled all advertising. Apple pulled all of its ads. IBM pulled all ads. Media Matters was so severe that companies not even featured in the article pulled their ads. Lionsgate, losers. Warner Brothers, losers. Discovery, Paramount, Sony, losers. Says Media Matters did this with intent to harm the revenue stream. They represent themselves as a progressive research and information center, scam center, dedicated to comprehensively monitoring, analyzing, and correcting conservative misinformation. Now, since its launch in 2004, it is engaged in an all-out campaign of guerrilla warfare and sabotage on conservatives and conservative news sources, the worst. In this context, X and Elon are are a critical Media Matters target because X, they say, is the most prominent online platform that permits users to share all viewpoints, whether liberal or conservative. And Mr. Musk is the most prominent voice on the platform, a passionate supporter of free speech. And so in taking down two forces it already found objectionable, Media Matters had the chance to starve X of ad revenue and thereby silence all of the voices on X. Nothing in Media Matters' campaign was coincidental or accidental. Its guerrilla attack on X is working, which we cannot let it succeed, driving away X's advertisers and revenue precisely as intended. And so Elon is under some fire now, obviously. They say here, interference with contracts, saying Media Matters intentionally interfered with the contracts between X and all of these companies, saying that they also are liable for business disparagement, saying that they made statements that are obviously untrue and disparaging. Also interfering with their economic advantage. They describe this as reporting. It's not. It's deception. It's misrepresentation. It's wrongful conduct. It's bad faith. And they intended to disrupt these relationships. It's not truth information. It's like smearing. So X was harmed as a result of this action. It lost advertisers, and it has been a substantial factor in causing this harm because all of these relationships fell apart after Media Matters published their piece. And so they say here, X is asking for the following. 1. Actual and consequential damages caused by Media Matters and their misconduct, including all damages. A preliminary injunction ordering Media Matters to immediately delete and take down and remove their article from their website. They want attorney's fees, and they want any action, other resources that the court deems just and appropriate, signed here by attorneys for the Elon team, John C. Sullivan and Judd E. Stone, on behalf of X Corp, suing Media Matters, and I hope they get every single penny that they ask for. And so that is not it. Elon is also joined by Ken Paxton, who submitted this. For immediate release in the aftermath of this scam story, Ken Paxton says that they are opening an investigation into Media Matters for potential fraudulent activity. The Office of the AG is opening up an investigation, says Ken, into Media Matters for potential fraudulent activity. Writing under the Texas Business Organizations Code and Deceptive Trade Practices Act, the OAG will vigorously enforce against nonprofits who commit fraudulent acts affecting the state of Texas. And Elon's in Texas now. Attorney General Paxton was extremely troubled by the allegations that Media Matters, a radical anti-free speech organization, fraudulently manipulated data on X. He said, "We're examining the issue closely to ensure that the public has not been deceived by the schemes of radical left-wing organizations who would like nothing more than to limit freedom by reducing participation in the public square," said Attorney General Paxton. And so, good news there in Texas. Elon is firing shots in court. So is Ken Paxton from the AG's office, and we're hopeful that they make some progress. Some reaction from Elon and others on the X platform. Elon said that Media Matters is pure evil. And this is a retweet of a Michael Schellenberger post that says the media is really, the goal is to destroy X. Okay, the media doesn't like X because they're getting all the attention. And Elon says they are pure evil. And Elon's a smart guy. This came over from Linda Yaccarino, who is the CEO of X. She says, "If you know me, you know I'm committed to truth and fairness. Here's the truth. Not a single authentic user on X saw IBM's, Comcast, or Oracle's ads next to the content in the Media Matters article. Only 2 users saw Apple's ad next to the content, at least one of which was Media Matters themselves. Says that data wins over manipulation and allegations. Don't be manipulated. Stand with X." And so I think that their response here has been quite good. Unfortunately, we've got a bunch of people who are hyper-reactive to anything that scares them. IBM, Apple, Disney, all these people bailing when the propagandists seemingly have a victory. But we're seeing some people fighting back now, and Elon suing in Fort Worth, Texas, Northern District out of a federal district court. And we'll be here to continue to follow the free speech battle because they did not have to contend with Twitter during the last election. X is now something they do have to contend with. And so the escalation will continue. We'll be here to continue to cover it, my friends. Thank you for subscribing, and thank you for liking this video wherever it is you're watching this. Don't forget to check out robertgovea.com. Sign up for our daily newsletter. Get access to this PDF and more. All the red lines are up there, and we'll look forward to seeing you on the next one.